There we go. Finally recording. I don't even have a beer. Brilliant. Looks tasteless. Right. There is a beer. It's pretty clear. If you can see it. I don't know if you can or not. Right, so what is this? This is a German Fest beer. It was started off as Up the Hill Helles, and then it kind of get progressively stronger. I ended up using up my Bohemian Pils malt, and so I was wanting to put Vienna, so I kind of got more flavour out of this. I just wanted to kind of layer it up with the Bohemian Pils, so I went 62% floor malted Bohemian Vermin, and then I've got Vermin Vienna malt as a 37%, so it's a double batch. I always love to do my lagers in the tank, the uni tank, and so it was a 6.55 kilo of floor malted Bohemian and 3.9 of Vienna. I did originally start that recipe as slightly less Vienna, but what drove it was I didn't have enough Bohemian Pils, as you normally do, but it has turned out really nice. So, the hops in it, I've went Pearl, Herzbrucker and Tettnang. Pearl is my go-to at the minute for bittering. Basically, I've got loads of Pearl. I've got loads of Pearl leaf, and it's beautiful. It's really great. It's a nice kind of 6.9% alpha acids, and then the back end, so that's 60 minutes, and at the back end it's Herzbrucker and Tettnang, both 50 grams each. And Herzbrucker I love because it's got that berry note thing, and Tettnang is just that floral spice that it gives. So I just berry and that sort of spice thing's just what I'm after. This beer ended up 5.1. No, this says 5.1, but I'm sure it ended up 5.5 on the finals. Let's just double check on the ferments. Yeah, 5.5. So it was post ball gravity was 10.53, so it was 3 points up, and then final gravity was 10.12, which gave me a beer of 5.5%. Hopefully that's right. It is. It was decocted, so there was a bit of decoction went on as well, just to bring a wee bit more sort of a little bit of flavour, and that's just a case of filling up. I've got a little stock pot, one of those kind of, I don't know how many litres, it's 8 or so litres, and I just load that thing up with all the mash and then basically fire it up. What else? So the mash, I kind of do this stepped mashing thing, so it's like 50 degrees C, 65, 69, and then up to 77 for a kind of mash out, 77, 76, whatever it is. And that kind of takes it through, and the idea with that is to try and extract as much out of the malts as possible, but also with the decoction bringing that sort of caramel, sort of little bit of more maltiness out of the beer. And then the yeast was 4 packets, so if you're doing a 23 litre batch then it would be 2 packets. This was 4 packets of the W8C Hopping Pils, which is an absolute beast of a yeast. I think it's the Oktoberfest yeast basically, and what that does is it leaves a bit of sweetness. So as I say, I think this one finished, was it 10, 12 did I say? Just double check. Yeah, it gives a bit of body on the kind of final, so it just brings that kind of sweetness and stuff that you want for maybe a sort of bigger beer like this. But as I say, I got in the nose, it's just that sort of spicy berry thing. Oh, it's berry for days on the flavour, but then it's got this nice sort of finish, crispy, sweetness, that bready malt. As you're speaking out, there's a bit of caramel sort of thing going on. And it's just, it's what a beer. It's really, really good. And I think that's the Vienna. There's a lot to say with the Vienna malt, actually. Because Bohemian Pils decocteds get more honey sort of thing. Whereas with the Vienna, I'm getting that sort of caramelly thing. Which is just like, yeah, I really like it. And it works really well with the fest. Especially with it being the kind of Oktoberfest. I did have this on the podcast with the boys and sent it on Beer Mail for the pod. We had an Oktoberfest on the Hop Edition. That worked. It was lovely. The guys actually thought it stood up really, really well against the Oktoberfest beers that we were drinking, which was a bit of a surprise actually. A nice surprise, I suppose. But I'm finding that it's the fermentation that I'm doing really have kind of elevated my lagers, where I'm not doing that whole 10, 12 degrees and then up to 16 or 18 for the acetyl rest and then cold crashing straight away. It's the utopian lager brewing method where you're that you need to find out where your yeast is happy at. So the WHC Hopping Pils is a 12 degrees C one, so I just knock everything up by 2 degrees from what Utopian do with their yeast, and it seems to be like 12 degrees for the kind of mainstay of the beer, and then you kind of slowly just drop it down. Generally so you're 12 degrees for the mainstay, and then once you're starting to get down to nearer final terminal gravity, what you tend to do when the bubbles start to slow down is I'll then cold crash 1 degree C per day all the way down to about, I think Utopian does 6, so I tend to take it down to maybe about 8. Or is it there's 5 and I'm 6, something like that. Anyway, so a slow crash down to that, and then I'm better off just finding the thing to talk it through. Yeah, so Utopian do it all the way down to 5. I tend to take it down to 6. So I'll do a degree a day down to 6, and then that way I can then spun for natural carbonation as well. Once you're kind of down there, you can basically, that's when you cap it. And then also what I'll do is I'll then drop the yeast as well after that. So you'll tend to then take the yeast off and then leave it for about a week, and then I'll cold crash down to my setup lets me go down to about 3C, and yeah, it's just the flavour it brings is just nuts. I feel like I've just done another lager there. I've not done any kind of footage on it, but I did a lager where I used the Crafty Maltsters lager. The Crafty Maltsters pale ale malt, which I'm thinking is kind of more like Vienna. And then I used Pearl again, and then I used Saaz from the garden, and it is really then same process, and then it brings loads of flavour as well. So at the minute I'll show you it. Since I'm not going to do a video, I'll put it in this check glass. Since it's Saaz. But it's literally kegged today. So, that's it there. Oh my god. Do you know what you get the Saaz? You get that lemon. And that's from my garden as well, which is incredible, actually. Get the. This is good, by the way. The on the nose, I get like that kind of honey sort of sweetness thing, and that's pops. But I wonder if it's a lot to do with the kind of the fermentation schedule as well, and that hopping pills that just leaves that sort of bready, like caramelly thing. It just smells great, and it probably has the hops as well, like that pearl maybe, and the Saaz isn't in this one. That like I'm having a lager fest here, by the way. If one of my favourite styles right now is to brew lagers, and having that SS Brewtech Unitank with the glycol and the using this process with the Utopian method of brewing all my lagers, it's definitely up to my lager game, I would say, in a big way. And the next thing I'll be using is the WHC Einstein yeast, which I think is 3470. That's the next plant to start using that. I'll need to check to see if that can be brewed like at 10 degrees or if that's a 12 degrees C yeast. But my plan is to do that. Okay, so in flavour, because that's just pops, it is definitely more. This is more sweet caramel, bit more malt complexity as well. Whereas I didn't decoct the Crafty Maltsters one. So this is bringing more to the party. This has got a touch slight more salt, little bit of sulphur, very very little. It tastes like a very young lager, and it is. It's like I think it's 2-3 weeks old. But no, it must be 3 weeks old from when I brewed it. So it just needs more time. But this lager's going to go to the burn supper. I've got two kegs, one for me and then one for January, and that will go for the supper. So by January this will be like crispy as heck, but it's not too hazy. I mean, when I was pouring that into the keg, it was like flipping super clear. But yeah, that's tasting excellent, and it's also only 4.1%. So for me, I wanted a drinking lager as well. But less about that, more about this one. Just, yeah, I think the point of this all is if you haven't tried the Utopian method, then do it. And I'll quickly just go through it, what they had on the screen. Day 0, chill watt to 7 degrees C and aerate. Pitch yeast at 5 times 10 to the 6 cells. So is that 1.5 million cells or so per milliliter. Day 1, free rise to 9C. Day 5-6 at 4 degrees Plato, 10-16. So that's like how much, that's near the end of fermentation. Chill to 1 degree C per day to 5C, and I think that's magical. And then spunned it for natural carbonation up to 3 degrees Plato. Day 8-9, crop the yeast and transfer to secondary. So if you've got a secondary tank or whatever, I'll crop the yeast and then basically carbonate in tank, and then it's leaving it at 5C for 1 week for a diacetyl rest. Day 18, so you've went from day 9, you've done a week, and now you're at day 18, chill to 0C for lagering, and it's a grain to glass for them of 4 to 6 weeks. So mine's is probably secondary, he calls a keg basically, where it'll be a bright tank and it'll clear up. And what I'll do is before I take that keg to the burn supper, what I'll do is I'll clean another keg and I'll transfer off that keg into a new fresh keg. And that means any of that settlement that's happened in the keg, basically gets left behind so that I'm not transporting a keg to the burn supper and then knock it all up and get a big yeasty beer, which happened probably the first year actually, so that was a lesson learned. So yeah. Anyway, this is a tiny little glass. It is Friday. I'm just trying to hold out as much as possible before I go proper Monday bevies. I've got the podcast tomorrow night on the dispense, how to set up your bar and all that. Basically, most of my time now these days is focusing on the podcast and climbing. I think it's my new hobby, and basically losing weight, because beer making doesn't really conduce to losing weight. So I'm only drinking Fridays and Saturdays really, and then rest of the time it's eating good, being healthy. So good health. Hope you're all well, and it was good to come on and do a wee catch up with you anyway. Alright, so hopefully see you all in the podcast. I'll see you then. Cheers. Bye.